Yay, love that. Anybody in? Okay. With that, we're going to get started with our guests so we can respect everybody's time. So it is election time right now for APCO, second vice president candidates. And we have all three folks who are running for second vice president here today. I put them in order by last name. So I have Matt Frank. Is it Frank or Frankie?
I actually say Frankie, but I'll answer to most anything.
Okay, Frankie. Did you hear me? Can you hear me now? Right now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes. And please, I'm sorry. Tell me again how to say your last name appropriately.
I say it as Frankie.
Frankie. Well, that's the right name then. All right. Yeah. So Matt, hold on just a second. I'm going to share your video. I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time getting you on our main screen. Just one sec. Technology, y'all. There we go. Okay, now go ahead, Matt, and give us some information about you and your candidacy, please.
Okay, so my name is Matt Frankie. I'm from the Ohio chapter. 40 plus years in public safety communications, 30 plus years as a member of APCO, currently executive council representative for the Ohio chapter, and also serve as the chair of the Spectrum and Technology Committee. 20 plus years in the Ohio chapter leadership, up through the ranks, through president, and that also represent the Ohio chapter with the board, with the APCO seats on the SIEC and also on the 911 technical committee for the chapter. 10 years in leadership in APCO International at the executive council level, and also 5 years on the board of directors. So really, it was my 5 years on the board of directors that really kind of pushed me to run for second vice president. When I joined the board of directors, it was right at the end of Project 43, which was the broadband implications into the public safety answering point. And I really felt that only just scratched the surface, and we really had to talk about what this really meant for us. And as I said, I've been around this business for a long time. I started back with basic 911, before enhanced 911, before wireless 911. Back when radio was analog and before it went to digital, before when it was conventional, before it went to trunk. I have not seen anything that I believe is going to have such a fundamental impact on the Emergency Communications Center as Next Gen 911. Even computerized CAD. You know, everything we've had so far really just changes the way we process the same data. So we went from cards to, you know, entering it in a computer. With Next Gen 911, we're really talking about taking information into the ECC that we've never received before, with, you know, with pictures and video and all this additional data that's just going to bombard us. And it really is going to be a fundamental change, both in technology. How do we present that? How do we deal with that? How do we present multiple calls from the same interstate crash, where now we're just used to taking, you know, those phone calls and quickly triaging them and passing them off and essentially hanging up. Now we're gonna have to look at all the video to see if there's anything good there. But the real key is really passing it all the way through out to the field. You know, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. I don't know about your center. I don't have enough people to spend 1,000 words trying to describe to that fire captain what color the smoke is under the eaves. And those are the kind of questions that they're going to want to know. And so we can put that video right in that fire truck so that fire captain can look at that and determine what kind of fire he's up against. Obviously, that's good for everybody. I think with staffing the way it is, we've got to make sure that we handle technology, that we don't get overwhelmed with it, that we don't have so much that we can't handle it. So that was really kind of my push in my 5 years on the board of directors. At last year's executive council in Anaheim and at the conference, you know, APCO rolled out their definitive guide to next generation 911. This is something I had pushed for in my time on the board, and I realized that the work wasn't done yet. APCO has been there for me from where I began 40 years ago as a dispatcher, in my college years when I was just looking for a job to make money to pay for tuition. And I found the APCO as a resource to help me understand exactly what I was supposed to be doing. So APCO's been there for me all this time. I feel that I still owe a little bit of a debt. I want to continue. I want Next Gen is just something that is just so fundamental that I think we got to do it. We got to do it well. We got to do it right, or we are really sentencing, our entire next generation of dispatch personnel to a miserable experience if we can't fundamentally use this technology and not just have it overwhelm us. Since then, I also believe with Derek Porch's retirement that with my 5 years experience on the board, that I can come back in and help during that transition, keep Next Generation on track while we're going through the transition from one executive director who's been there for years and has done well with APCO into a change that most of us can't remember the last time that we had to go through a change in the executive director. So I think I still owe something to APCO for everything APCO's done for me in my career. I think that APCO is the organization that can help us, that touches all aspects of it. With my work on the technology side, just dealing with the FCC's recent rulings on 6 gig and 4.9 gigahertz, for example, for putting other users into our spectrum that we used to have to ourselves in public safety, and dealing with the impact that's going to have. We all remember the interference that Nextel caused us, and that continues to be a problem. And I think APCO needs to be there. It needs to be that force on Capitol Hill and through the FCC to make sure that public safety needs are addressed, and that we can move forward and realize exactly what it's going to look like in the coming years with Next Gen. What's that not only mean in technology, but also for our personnel? How do we hire people to handle this? How do we train them to handle all this new information? We've never trained them to handle video before. We've never even, taught them, because it's only been audio. Now, how do we train them to look at these pictures and realize what's important to pass on? If they've got 4 different callers, how do we tell which one is the best one to put out in the car? So we've got a lot of changes coming. I'm at the end of my career, but before I walk out the door for the last time, I really want to have things prepared for the future. And that's really why I've decided to run for second vice president, to kind of make sure that public safety communications is in a good spot going forward for my kids, for my grandkids, and for everybody that's following behind me. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And just to share, what we'll do is I'll have the other 2 candidates take some time doing their introduction, and then at the end we'll save a couple minutes so that if folks have questions of any of the 3, then we'll do kind of an open question for everyone. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine. Great. Thank you.
Great. So next up in the alphabet, we have last name Mark Spross. Why don't you go ahead, Mark, and talk to us a little bit about your candidacy.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. I'm so excited to be back. And I was surprised that Katie said I had about 30 to 45 minutes. So I'm kidding, totally kidding. I truly am excited to be here to talk with you guys today. And I just have to get a little dig into both Matt and Maureen. They're great people, but for once, they have to stay up late instead of me having to get up early to talk to the East Coast. So yay, Washington. Anyway, just kidding. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background, why I'm running. I really am super excited about this opportunity. It is kind of a crazy ride, but I'll also be very frank and upfront with you. I've had a lot of people who have been mentors, not only here within Oregon APCO, but on the national level, who really encouraged me to run for this position. And that really means a lot when I have those types of people that I really respect ask me to do this. So after a little bit of soul searching and talking to my board to make sure that I had significant support from them, here I am. So my background, I've been in public safety for about 32 years now. Over that time, I've worked in a variety of centers. All the centers I've been in have been consolidated centers. So not that that's necessarily good or bad, but it really gives me an opportunity to see all the aspects of the different types of dispatch that we do handle within the 911 structure. So I worked as a dispatcher, supervisor, technical manager, operations manager. I left for a little bit of time to work as an emergency manager and then also as a deputy sheriff. And I'm currently the director of an amazing agency down here in Woodburn, Oregon. So that's just outside of Portland and just north of Salem. I think a lot of you know our area. So with APCO, I've served in our state level of all of our positions. So I've from vice president, president, all of those positions I've held. I've worked on a variety of committees. Probably the one that I'm most proud of, and also it's a little bit frustrating, but that's on the legislative committee. I've been involved in some very significant legislative issues that have impacted Oregon. Probably the biggest for us. I know your tax structure is slightly different from us, but we were able to successfully finally get a tax increase passed for the 911 tax statewide. So several other things, but that was probably one of the things that I'm most proud of. I also currently serve as the executive council rep for the state of Oregon, which gives me significant work with the board of directors on the international level. I do work at our training academy, so I'm an instructor down there for all of our new telecommunicators, which have to go through, of course, that training to become certified in the state. I've recently been appointed by the governor of Oregon to oversee Oregon Emergency Management, who's responsible for the 911 network and also the distribution of the tax dollars within our state. So that's just to say that I've got a ton of different experience working with our chapter. I also have a lot of experience working with different forms of government. So where I work today, I'm my own form of government. I know you have very similar organizations up in Washington. I forget what they're called, but in Oregon, they're the ORS 190. I've also worked for cities, counties, on the state level with my appointment with the governor's office. And then on the national level, I've worked with the Office of Communications to go and evaluate different communication systems. So if you remember after September 11th, a ton of money came out for interoperability. The feds finally realized that, hey, we need to check to make sure everyone's doing things right. So I had the opportunity to travel around the country to evaluate that. It was a phenomenal opportunity. So I only mention that just to kind of give you sort of an idea of my breadth of background, that I really have covered a lot of different areas, which I think is critically important when we go into working to represent you on the national level. So for me, I took kind of a different approach on explaining what my campaign platform is, if you will, because a lot of people said, well, why are you running? What is the big things that you want to do? And I'll be very honest with you. I don't have a lot of new things on my plate that I'm looking at. That doesn't mean I'm not prepared to pivot. I absolutely am. But with that said, and Matt actually kind of talked on some of those, there's some very big things that are still in front of us. The one is the Next Gen 911. If you remember back in December, we lost the opportunity to get that moving forward. APCO Government Affairs, along with our representative, Nina, have done a phenomenal job of getting that reintroduced to Congress, and we're making some significant progress. So I continually chat with our folks in our government affairs staff with APCO to get updates on that, and it's looking very, very promising, which will hopefully allow the FCC the ability to sell some of that spectrum, which will hopefully fund this $15 billion. Now, that $15 billion is not going to be enough to cover Next Gen for the entire nation, but I'm really optimistic about what APCO is doing to not only work on that funding, but to also work out some standards on what that should look like across the nation, which I didn't honestly know how sticky that was when you start talking to different organizations, because it's not just us with APCO. It's the police and fire associations that are also involved with this. So again, I've learned a lot of information from our government affairs staff, and I'm super excited about where this is going to go. And I really want to be involved with that, representing you on the executive committee to make sure that that gets pushed forward. The next big one is reclassification. So again, I have done a lot of talk with our government affairs office as well as some of our other APCO staff, and I think that we're getting a lot closer to this. What surprised me is I didn't realize that we have other professional organizations that actually kind of put some speed bumps in our way. Not a big deal, but I think they had some concerns that we're currently working through. So I want to be involved with that. Now, when I say that, I also want to make sure everyone understands this is not going to make an immediate difference for our jobs day to day. But what I'm hopeful for, that this is going to give some significant ability for our local chapters. And I know that you guys have actually made some big headway on this recently, but will allow the chapters to go to the state level to say, look, we are classified in public safety. So that should give us the opportunity to look at different retirement systems, as well as some different health and wellness benefits. So I know that you guys have had a great opportunity to pass some current legislation. In Oregon, we haven't been so lucky, especially on the retirement side, but we were lucky. We had some legislation passed that included PTSD. So they passed a law for fire and police officers that PTSD could be covered as an OSHA claim. They left off dispatch, and we were able to get that put back in. So I'm hopeful that that will give credence to the states to do that. The other is how we do our shifts. So as you know, we are stuck by federal regulations, and unless you are with a specific police or fire agency, the FLSA requires us to work certain shifts. I think that should be our decision, and I'm hopeful that this change will eventually allow us to get there. And then finally, at least for my big projects, would be health and wellness. We have a phenomenal committee that's been working on a lot of different projects, and I want to ensure that we have an ability to keep facilitating ways to push that information out. And as you know, our jobs are stressful, and you know, you guys have tons of examples, and you guys are a national award winner almost every year. So that shows the great work that's being done in the state of Washington. But it wasn't very long ago that I heard about that tragic incident in one of your centers where the dispatcher on duty had a medical emergency, and that your staff up there, they jumped into motion. They took care of his needs. They got him to the hospital, and they were able to handle all of those calls that were going on. And to me, I think that, you know, the follow-up healthcare of that is important, which I hope our health and wellness committees can help with. Another thing Matt talked on was CEO recruitment. I do believe now that we'll probably have an announcement at conference on who the replacement is. But if not, I still would love to be involved with that process, because that person is critical in working on relations in Washington, D.C., as well with our other professional organizations. So, you know, I think that having that is super important. The other thing is I do have a ton of experience with being currently a group leader. I forgot to mention that on the national level. So I work with all of our different committees. I work with our executive committee. I work with the board of directors. So I have a lot of that background and knowledge to ensure that whoever that person is, especially if they're selected from the outside, will have an executive committee member that really is ready to hit the road running. And I know that this probably isn't popular for my two other candidates to hear, but I think representation is extremely important. And we've been very, very fortunate for quite a while to have an executive committee that's made up of different members from across the US. If I'm not elected, then all of our representatives will come from east of the Mississippi. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily bad, but as you know, 911 is a little bit different across the country. And I think it's important that we have a weighted voice. And as you guys know, you've worked with me before, I'm not afraid to ask the tough questions. I'm not afraid to be told no, but you know, I think it is important that we have that weighted structure. So we do have that representation from at least as much of the parts of the country that we can. So with that, I really am excited to have this ability to run. I really would love to represent all of you. And if you have any questions for me when we're done listening to Maureen, please let me know.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark. And Maureen, why don't you go ahead and give us some information about your candidacy?
Okay. Hello, everybody. And yes, I'm up past my bedtime. It's 8:21 here in the East Coast. And I'm sitting here freezing because we went from the nice warm weather and now we're back into sub-zero and it's cold out here. So that's okay. I don't mind. I've been stalking your conference, seeing all the different sessions that you have and seeing the things that you post. I'm a history buff. As the chapter historian, the first thing I noticed on your website is you have a timeline. Most websites do not have a timeline for their chapter, and I think that is so cool. And please excuse me if I use it for the Atlantic chapter, because I facilitate the RPL and we're in that class 6, talking about history and our chapters. And a couple of guys had mentioned that, the timeline. So I'm excited to try it. But for me, I am a member-driven person. I'm association chapter for love of the association, for love of chapter. I like to mentor. I like to be mentored, and I have been very fortunate. I started back at the tender age of 15, being a dispatcher in the town of Newtown. And talk about a liability putting me on the desk. But I was part of the Explorer program, and that's how we learned. My girlfriends wanted to be nurses, and I said, nope, I'm going to be a cop. So I started with the Explorers, and that's what happened. I spent 30 years as a police officer, retiring as a captain. And then I had a wonderful 6-month retirement, and I became the Director of Emergency Communications here in Newtown. I've been here for 15 years now. So with that being said, 45 years is pretty darn good. And I got a lot more good years left in me. And right now I'm looking at, I'm a director, or deputy director of emergency management here in Newtown, as well as being the communications director. I work with the state on 911. And one thing about listening to all of you talk about your 911, we have NextGen 911 here in Connecticut. It is a statewide system. We accept text messages. We choose not to accept video, although we have that ability through Prepared Live and Rapid SOS. But we have chosen not to do it because we're only a 2-person center, 2 on at each shift, days, evenings, and mids. And depending on the call volume, I can't afford to have one of my dispatchers accept video of a horrific scene such as the Sandy Hook school shooting, because I would have lost the 2 dispatchers that were working that day. We have all the cameras around every school, and they're up on Big Bertha in the center, and I do not allow my staff to access school videos. Now, if there's a streaker, they'll be happy to access it, and I'll be the first one with them, because that's fun. And we all need a good laugh. I see Kathy laughing, but it's fun. If they're spray painting the wall, we'll do that. But if there's children being murdered, no, we're not going to do that. Somebody said to me, well, what happens if there's a fire? Bring out the marshmallows and the hot dogs. That'll help. We'll send that. We'll try to tell the fire department where it is. There's a time and a place for the video. And my state is very progressive. They pay for our 911 system. It's statewide. I can walk into any 911 center in the state of Connecticut, log in with my credentials, and work their system. You can't say that for a lot of places, but when we were researching it, we went out of state. I was part of that core group that went out and looked at all the different 911 systems. So I know how lucky we are, and I know what to look for. And the new chair of the FCC comes from Hartford, Connecticut. She's a wonderful woman, and she supports APCO. And I am both an APCO and a NENA member, and I am proud of both associations because we both do different things. And right now, I see us, Mark, and Matt, we're history makers. There's 3 people running for second vice president. We haven't seen that in forever. And yes, we have a CEO that, Mr. Porch, either you loved him or you hated him, one way or the other. And he has been the only person I've ever known as the CEO. And now, yes, we're going into the unknown, but he has given his word that he will help make sure that the person who is stepping into his shoes is not going to walk into his shoes or do the same things, but will be the right person for the right time. So we as candidates, we have a whole new world that we can look forward to, and different responsibilities and different things that we're going to look at, because our whole world is changing. And right now, I like being part of that change. I was chair of bylaws, and if that didn't make you twitch, nothing will, because that's a cool committee to be on. So I'm very familiar with the inner workings and what makes us tick. Right now, I'm on agency training. I chaired a bunch of task forces, been on ProChart, P43, I was on that one. The SDC is another one that can make you twitch, but that's part of how we work, that meticulous work. And I was very fortunate to be mentored by some wonderful, wonderful people to help me remember our past and to go forward with our future. You had 3 international past presidents. I stalk everybody. I check everybody's history. That's how much I love it. And I thank Rich Betcher for that, the history. And you're from 2008 through, or from 1966 through 2008. That's 3 presidents. That's outstanding. And I'd like to see that on your website to tout that, because not a lot of chapters have presidents, have put forward a president. And I'd like to be one from the Atlantic chapter. We've had such wonderful people who came before us, Mr. McMillan, Mr. Batts, Fisher, Ms. Greathouse, Ms. Smith, the Carters, Brent Lee, and Mr. Joe McNeil, who happens to be my personal favorite from Massachusetts. But these are men and women who have helped shape our association. And I want to continue giving back the way you all gave to me when we were having issues. No matter what happens, I'm not going anywhere. I can be a thorn in somebody's side. And just like Mark, I don't mind asking the tough questions. And sometimes I get a good answer and sometimes I don't. But at least I tried. So I have the will to be your second VP. And I'm really looking forward to Nashville and to meeting all of you. And I thank you for your time and attention. And I'll leave you alone now.
Well, thank you very much for that. I'm going to open it up. Is there anyone who has any questions for our candidates? Jonathan Brock. Convenient. He was the one who said, are we going to have time for questions?
So my question is, there's multiple states that have joint chapters of APCO NENA, and I think we get on very well. But it seems like at the national level, there's been a lot of contention between APCO as an organization and NENA as an organization over issues of common concern that they're just not able to get on the same page. So I'd like to understand what your positions are and what you would do to advocate for better collaboration in the second budget.
Okay, let's go down the list. How does that sound? Or maybe we'll go back up again. So Maureen, how about you can start this time?
Okay. I would ask the current board, okay, what's your problem? Because I've seen them all interact at different conferences. The APCO and NENA are 2 distinct organizations. We all know that. 2 specific and distinct CEOs who run their companies as they run them with their board of directors. What goes on behind the scenes? I don't know. But I would have to know. And when I go to a NENA meeting, we talk NENA business. And it doesn't get discussed with APCO business. And that's the way it's supposed to be. But I don't know what other people say they see problems. I know I have not seen that. And it's not because I'm naive. I don't look for it. And the things that I have heard, sometimes they're backed up and sometimes they're not. And I will go to my EC and I will say, bring it up to the board of directors because this is what I've heard. I'd like an answer. And we've always been given an answer that seems to have satisfied our board and our chapter. So.
Thank you. Mark, I guess you'll be in the middle again. Second, let's go.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, geez, not an easy question to answer. No, I'm kidding. So first, let me tell you, I am also from a combined chapter. So that's all I've ever known. So Oregon APCO NENA, to me, it makes sense. Now, when I say that, I also get that there's some states that they don't want that. And I don't think that's an issue at all. So let me try to first address what you asked, what the problem is, and then hopefully can finish with what I would do. So in order to prepare for this position, I've really been doing a lot of homework, working with the executive committee from last year, as well as the executive committee from this year, because there's so much. I can relate it like this. When we all started a new job, we thought we knew a lot, and then we started the job and we didn't quite realize everything that we knew or didn't know. And I'll tell you, my current position as a director, man, I had a steep learning curve for about the first year or so. And that's not much different with learning the APCO operations at the executive committee level. I've been learning a lot. Now, with that said, what I've learned is that there's not been an issue at all between the 2 boards, the executive committee from APCO really gets along well with the one from NENA. They've actually had some great dialogue. What I've discovered and become a little bit frustrated with is after some very good meetings and conversations, there's been some failure of communications and some diversion in paths that were agreed upon that were sometimes driven by the professional staff versus the volunteers who are supposed to be running the organization. And so, you know, Marina alluded to you either liked Derek or didn't like Derek. I have a lot of respect for the work he did as CEO, and it's a significant organization. But I will tell you that I think the change for us could potentially be good with our relationships with NENA. Now, with that said, I also think that, you know, NENA's at a point with Brian that may also make a difference when he decides to retire. So sometimes that change can help with the communications. So that's all to let you know that, unfortunately, our organizations can be much more political than they need to be. But I have heard, I've seen, and I've talked to representatives from both organizations that truly at the executive committee level, there really is some good dialogue and some good communication. If you remember the brouhaha that came up with APCO and the combining of chapters, you know, there was a couple things that were brought up, but really when you peel back that onion, what the bottom line was is APCO and frankly NENA as well wanted to ensure that the funds that were coming through the organizations were being documented and used appropriately. And, you know, that's not much different than what we do with our own organizations in the county. And frankly, even as nonprofits, which we all are, that could put us into some interesting challenges if we ever were audited by the IRS. So really at the APCO level, I don't know that it was much more of an issue other than one, the accounting, and then two, those chapters that didn't want to do it, they didn't have to do it. And those that wanted to could do it. So unfortunately, we still see some of the politics that go on behind the scenes. With me, what would I do? Well, I'm Mark, and I am, I speak my mind. And I think a lot of you have worked with me over the years and you know that. So I'll call a spade, and I'll be prepared to deal with the consequences. But I do think it's vitally important that our organizations work well together, because at the end of the day, we really are the only two that have the professional mindset for 911. What's becoming a bit frustrating that I'm learning as I'm working with our current executive committee, as well as our government affairs for APCO, is how much influence other organizations from the police and the fire, sheriffs, et cetera, are having influence on what we do in Washington, D.C. You know, I don't think that's necessarily bad, because they can absolutely be our advocates. But if there's something that they're not comfortable with, unfortunately, they can create a lot of work for us. So that's why I think that APCO and NENA need to continue to build the relations. I do think that our executive committees now get along well. I think that a change with Derek will help with that. And I really, I like Brian. He actually is from the West Coast originally, Fonts. And I hope that he is looking also to potentially look for retirement, so we can see some leadership change there as well. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. And Matt?
I think that, you know, I go back far enough that I remember before NENA, and obviously in Ohio, where NENA was formed, at that, I remember it, and I was a PSAP manager at the time, and in the early years at NENA, it was a great help to me as I dealt with 911. I think the problem is back in the 80s, they were, you know, NENA and APCO were basically playing in different sandboxes. NENA was handling telephone issues, and APCO was handling, you know, the radio RF issues. I think what's happened over time is the technology's changed. As we all know, we don't really carry radios and phones anymore. It's, you know, they're all computers. They're computers on the hips of the police officers and firefighters. They're computers in front of our dispatchers. The phones, they operate on computers. Everything's a computer anymore. And so now all of a sudden we find ourselves playing in the same sandbox. And that just, to me, it's a little bit like the local police and fire department, where they work together, but then there's always still that little bit of gamesmanship, it seems like. I think I don't completely understand it. In my 5 years on the board, we had meetings with the NENA board. I'm one of those guys that, you know, I claim to be a simple guy, and I don't understand why are we not on the same side on these issues, and why do we do this? Because we struggle as it is, and even at the national level with our 911 coalition that APCO put together, we still struggle with, you know, the sheriff's association and the police chiefs and that on issues. And it's just like reclassification. They look at it, well, what's it mean for us? What's it mean for our labor contracts and that? And it's hard for us to gain the support because nobody else really plays in our sandbox of public safety communications. So I lament the fact that NENA and APCO don't work better together. I was on the board when all this came up, and Mark's correct. It was pretty much driven by the financials. When you're on the board of directors, you have to sign the fiduciary statement, and we had money coming in. As you know, when you pay your APCO dues, it goes to APCO International, and then the money is sent out to the chapters. We didn't have a very good audit trail, and that's one of the things that came out of it. Is looking at that, and that's one of the things the board made the change to the policy manual, requiring that those joint chapter treasurers are APCO members if they're going to receive APCO funds, and that kind of shored that aspect of it up for us. As the North Central Regional Rep, we also had joint chapters in my region, so I learned a lot about how they operate. I get it. I get that we all struggle to have leadership at the state level, at the chapter level, and it's some of the same people that do it. In Ohio, we're separate chapters, but we have joint meetings, we have a joint conference, we do joint awards, we do a lot of things together. There's very few things that we don't do together, but we still do it as separate chapters. So I wish I had a great answer on why it is. I think really what it comes down to is the personalities. And again, every now and again, it's somebody who thinks that, you know, this is my part of the sandbox. We have to get past that because, again, as we move forward, we have to show a united front for public safety communications. Actually, I was just in Wisconsin last week, and I sat down with an old friend of mine, Gary Bell, who's past NENA president. And Gary and I have known each other for years. And one of the things we talked about over dinner was, how this went, and I was comparing his observations to my observations, and we were talking about my candidacy and moving forward. How do we do this? How do we make this work? How do we stop so we can show that united front? I will tell you, in Ohio, we're working on legislation for 911, for updating 911. I'm the legislative liaison, which means I'm the guy that goes and testifies at the State House in front of the committees and pushes the issue. And we were able to form a coalition there, which included the County Commissioners Association and the Township Association, the Municipal League. We got, the Heart Association. We had all these groups that were part of our coalition as we worked together. And one group we couldn't get was Ohio NENA. And I still don't know why we couldn't get them to sign on. I have a group membership in APCO for my agency, and we're also a group membership in NENA for my agency. And I challenged this, and I think it was just one of those things. Well, I'm not really sure why it is. And I know I'm kind of speaking against myself here because I want to fix this issue, and I can't even fix it at my own state. But those things go on as we do that. And I think what we have to realize is it's just one big sandbox, and technology all runs the same way now. You can't separate it out and say that's radio and that's telephone. And we have to figure out what our path forward is and how this works. Obviously, APCO has a little bit broader range. And we deal a lot more with the FCC on issues, and with 6 gigahertz and 4.9 gigahertz, and looking at the interference now that they're making public safety share of those spectrums, and that we went through the whole Nextel thing. Those are things there, but they're all starting to pull in now. And now wireless 911 is under the purview of the FCC. Well, all of a sudden, then NENA finds themselves dealing with the FCC, and they never did. Back in the 80s, NENA never had to deal with the FCC. Because it wasn't that issue. So I think, we have progressed. I think we need to. I'm one of those guys that I don't like to talk about the feel good things or, well, if we do this, then we'll be, I'm the guy, well, let's do what we can. Let's work with what we can do, not wait for somebody else to come in and do something else. So I know that's a little bit of a rambling answer, but this is something that I'm very passionate about because I went through this on the board on trying to fix the joint chapters. I think that's why APCO changed their policy. The joint chapters now just simply go through the rechartering process to make sure that everything is lined up. That's why they changed it so the treasurer is an APCO member so we can distribute the funds. And I think I see a lot of success out there in joint chapters. I see a lot of success with chapters that aren't joint but work together on a regular basis. And I think we just need to continue that and stay in lockstep as best we can to promote public safety communications and not let other people separate us. And by doing that, they lessen our ability to affect change.
Great. Thank you very much. I have to cut this session off now. If anybody has any more questions, can they just reach out to you all individually? Okay, or do you, if you send me some information about like where, if you have contact information or other information, send it to me. I'll put it in our notes and send it out to our members, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being here tonight. Okay, all right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everyone. Okay, so next up we have Charlie Cullen, our incoming NENA president, right? Is that right? You're going to be taking over soon?
That's right, in June. Can you hear me okay, Katie?
You can, please share with
Good.
us what's going on with NENA.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to address your chapter meeting. Before I talk a little bit about NENA, I would like to address the issue that came up here. You have three strong candidates, and I'm an APCO member as well, so it's nice being able to hear them speak today. Three highly qualified candidates, so that's a great competition to have. And they did bring up the issue of the boards, APCO and NENA. And I think we're in a much better place in terms of communication and working together than we were probably 4 or 5 years ago. We meet regularly with the APCO board. The APCO board comes to our conferences. We go to theirs. I was just with Steve Martini at the Colorado NENA APCO conference, and we spoke together in front of the audience. So I think we're in a much better place than we were a few years ago. You know, there's been some issues about, we agree on the major issues. We agree on funding for next generation 911. We obviously agree on dispatcher classification, wellness, the broad variety of issues that we are all dealing with in 911 and in communications. I think there were some disagreements on the I3 standard, and that can get pretty complicated. The technical experts on both staffs had some disagreements about I3, and APCO had taken a position initially against I3. Now, I3 is pretty much the established standard now for next generation 911, so I think that issue will eventually go away. But I did want to say that the boards are working much better together. You know, it's very important that we have these joint chapters in the West, in particular, where we have some very large states with not a lot of people. So having a joint APCO NENA chapter is critical to the success of maintaining a presence of a 911 organization in some of those states. Now, in your state, you're very well funded and you have a good membership, and your folks are very engaged. And it's always a pleasure dealing with Washington. They understand the issues, both technical and operational. So I hope to get out there in October for your conference. I believe it's in late October, if I'm not mistaken. And
October 7th, 19th, in that time range.
So I'm gonna try to make it out there. I was there a few years ago as the Western Regional, and look forward to doing that in October. So just to talk a little bit about where NENA is now, we have 19,000 members now. We're over 19,000 members, and I think part of that is through the group memberships. And if you haven't taken advantage of that, it's something to take a look at for your PSAP. You can get up to 20 members, I believe, 20 of your dispatchers and members, and 3 full-fledged memberships. For my agency, it's about $600. So it's a really good deal. It's a great way to get your dispatchers involved and give them some of the benefits of NENA membership, including the training and the online webinars and and a lot of the other things that they can take advantage of. Hopefully, we'll see some of you at the 2023 conference, which is coming up very soon here, June 17th through 22nd in Grapevine, Texas. The hotel right now has sold out, but they have additional hotel space. So I think this is going to be a very well attended conference. If you are planning on attending, please go online and sign up soon, given the demand for hotels, etc. Another thing I would like to mention is the Gold Line scholarships. If you're not aware of that program, we gave out 55 scholarships this year for the conference, where you get $1,000 towards travel and your conference registration fee taken care of. We give out actually more than half of the applicants get a scholarship. So that's something I would urge you to take a look at for next year. If you have people that want to go and you may not be able to budget for that, apply for the Gold Line scholarship. Tell people to put a little effort into it. We really do look at the applications and how expansive their responses are before making those decisions. But it's a great way to go to the conference or get somebody to go to a conference who can't afford it right now. We have a lot of online communities for folks that are interested in various components of 911 or issues, including leadership, wellness, women in 911, and there's a CMCP group. And you can, through the website, go to nena.org/tutorials. If you're interested in joining one of those online communities, it's a great way to network and talk to people. Training, we are starting to improve, I think, our online training and making more available for folks. There's an on-demand 40-hour course for starting telecommunicators. It's a telecommunicator core competency course. I actually have sent my starting dispatchers through that, and it's a very successful program. In addition, there's a Navigating Adversity online course that just came out last year. It's been really well received. Most of our board took that course and were really impressed with it. In addition, there's an Excellent Dispatch certification program that we just came out with, and there's a curriculum of 5 courses. If you complete 3 of those in 2 years, you can get the Excellent Dispatch certification. Obviously, ENP is an ongoing program. We had over 40 ENPs this past quarter that passed the test. So it's a great way to enhance your career and gain knowledge and experience that'll serve you well as you go forward. We have on our wellness section we have new articles on resiliency. We really are trying to emphasize wellness and make that a component of every PSAP, and we're looking to push some other initiatives out in this coming year. The big, obviously, the big legislation, which all 3 of the APCO candidates mentioned, is the reintroduction of next generation funding, and that was sponsored by Representatives Eshoo and Hudson. And we hope to have a Senate sponsors here soon. Right now, there is no funding attached to that bill. It would come out of the general budget, but I believe ultimately it will be tied to the spectrum auction that should be going forward in the next year. And I think we're optimistic that hopefully this year we can finally get that done. There's a lot of states that are very large geographically with small populations and will never get next generation 911 without federal funding. And even larger states, Washington and California, are going to need federal assistance to fully deploy next generation and have all of the capabilities for every PSAP in our states going forward. I have not seen the 911 Saves Act reintroduced, but I believe Norma Torres is going to reintroduce that again, and that's one that we really need to push forward as well. 22 states have done independently have reclassified dispatchers as first responders. So that's a real positive development. And if we have to do it state by state, we will certainly will, but it would be nice to get it done before 2028, which is the next time OMB would consider that job classification. One thing I should point out, one of the reasons why OMB did not reclassify the dispatchers is because the job descriptions that they received were so out of date. A lot of them were back from the 1980s and 1990s. So I really urge every dispatch center that I speak to take a look at your job descriptions and make sure they've been updated to indicate all the things that dispatchers do now, working with computers, doing emergency medical dispatch, all the other things that we now encompass in our roles in dispatch, to make it clear that that we are the first of the first responders, that we're directing response in the field, that we are actually doing directing people on the medical side, et cetera. So take a look at your job descriptions. If they're out of date, update them and try to get that done. Government affairs, we have a new government affairs director, Jonathan Gillad at the at NENA staff, and he has really hit the ground running. For any of you who went to 911 Goes to Washington, and that was a huge success. And he organized that very well and actually got the executive board appointments with the four corner committees of commerce, which we had never done before. And those were very successful, speaking to both the Democratic and Republican side of the House and the Senate about next generation 911 and in impressing upon them the importance of getting that legislation passed. We are looking for members in our committees and work groups. So please take a look at those committees and work groups. And if you're interested, sign up. You don't have to be a subject matter expert. Yeah, I've been on committees. When I first joined, I thought they were speaking a different language. But as you get rolling and get involved and work with these people, it really is such a beneficial experience. And you do have something to offer. Maybe you can help with how things are written, if you're a good writer, or you have the technical expertise to help in that area. So take a look. I urge you to get involved. It's been a great benefit to me through my career, working on these different committees and work groups, both dealing with the issues and also the networking and the friends you make across the country when you're involved in these groups. I3 standard work continues. We have a next generation 911 textbook that is in the works to come out this year, and a lot of exciting things going on. So I won't keep you any longer, but I would like to open it up if anybody has any questions. And thank you for giving me the time to address the group today.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Comments? All right. All right, we're good. Thank you. That was a lot of great information. I appreciate your brevity.
Thanks, Katie. Have a great chapter meeting.
All right, thank you. Okay.
To accomplish. I heard a lot about them and what they're interested in, but not about what they want to accomplish. We need somebody on the board with vision. I think our international board is a little bit lacking in that area. So I hope you all support the motion.
Any other discussion? Okay, yes, go ahead, Deanna.
I just want to support Mark as well. I worked with him. I didn't know him as well when we did the work with the PDCC, but we attended the first CEE course together. And it's about, I don't know, almost 10 months long, and then 2 weeks in person. And he's very personable. He's a good listener. He does understand the industry. He's from the 911 industry, and I think that he'll definitely be very supportive and carry on the mission that we need.
Great. Any other comments or discussion? Okay, we'll do a voice vote. So all in favor of endorsing Mark Spross for second VP for APCO. Please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. That's great. Next up, approval of meeting minutes. So I put on here, I had to adjust this agenda just because I spent some time actually reviewing the recordings for some of these meetings to take the notes. And so we have the minutes that are posted online for October 4th, as well as March 15th of 2023. So I didn't print them out because that's several reams of paper, I feel like. So I don't know if anybody's had an opportunity to review any of those minutes though. So we can either table this for our next meeting, or if we do have anyone who's been reviewing those minutes, we'll accept a motion as well for that. Either one, either approve or table.
I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you. Second. Second. Jonathan, second. I saw it said Jonathan, or I heard Jonathan, I should say. All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say aye. Opposed? Perfect. See, that's how this is working for me right now. There we go. All right, we just have a couple announcements. I'll be quick. Fall conference, in case you haven't registered, get online and register. Call for papers is open. We are having 5 different tracks, 2 telecommunicator tracks, supervisor leadership track, an IT track, and some other track. I can't remember the other one. I'm sorry. It's online though. Okay, right, sure, let's do it. So the registrations are open right now for people to attend. The call for papers is open for people to submit papers, as well as scholarship applications. So we offer state scholarship opportunities to attend conference. And we have 2 categories. One is for tech people, specifically IT technology people to attend the conference. And then the other one is geared towards telecommunicator or telecommunication supervisors. Those scholarships are available. The information is online as well. We have a new form that's in there, so it's all super easy and fantastic. They're due June 1st. So get on it, guys, get on it. All right, we'd be happy to send some folks to conference with that. The other thing is the call for papers. If you're selected and from a PSAP, you get 40% off discount off registration for the conference, or a free day pass, but you might as well just stay for the whole time, right? So that's another way that you can get yourself to conference on a little bit less money. We're having a virtual recruitment event this Friday, May 19th, 2023. And let's see, there's a little image, 2 p.m. So this is an online recruitment event. This is one of our initiatives that we're doing to reintroduce 911 as a job into the communities. So if you know somebody who's interested, or you think they'd be really good at it, send them to this group. It's on our website as a calendar invite. The link is there. You just have to call in, and it's like an hour-and-a-half scheduled time. There'll be people there, dispatchers talking, and representatives from PSAPs as well. And then the last thing I have for this is the wellness book. So we posted about what we want to start publishing is called a Why and Wellness book. And this came from a lady who works at Cressa in Clark County. She's a dispatcher there. She's been a dispatcher for probably 8 years now, I think. And she's a training officer and just a really great human being. And of course, I'm Facebook friends with her. And so she posted the other day about, somebody posted about an event and, you know, the struggles and that kind of thing. And she replied back with, you know, I have this book, it's called my Why book. And whenever I experience a call that I feel particularly proud of, and I feel like I made a difference, and this is like why I do this job, I write a note to myself about it. And then when I have those bad days or those bad calls, I open it up and this helps me get through this, right? And I was like, oh my God, I love that. And so what we want to do is craft a Why and Wellness book and kind of include, you know, option or areas for people to write their own whys. And then also we'll add some things in there about how to help yourself and how to, you know, deal with some mental things and just different tips and tricks and that sort of thing into a pamphlet. And what we plan on doing is having that done so that people can pre-order them and we want to do it kind of in early next year in time for PSAPs or vendors or whoever wants to maybe purchase a set of them for Telecommunicator Week and give them to their staff for Telecommunicator Week. It'll be at a reasonable cost. But what we're looking for is graphics or poetry or artwork. We know that we have a significant amount of really talented humans in our community. And so we want to open that up and share your artistic work with us. So if you have somebody that you know of that does things like that, or you want to post something or submit something, please send it to us at photo@apconena.org. I can't believe I didn't put the email address on there. Good gravy. Okay. With that, next up, I have Jason Fritz is going to come up here and talk to you a little bit about the updates to our bylaws. We have an administrative committee that is made up of maybe 3 people at this moment, I think. But the co-chairs are our vice president and the past president, which is Laura Euland and Jason Fritz back there, and they've been doing phenomenal work. Those 2 are amazing. So they are going to introduce kind of the bylaw changes right today, and then we'll motion for adoption in our next meeting, I think. So Jason, come on up.
Okay.
Or I can link it right. I have the link right here, actually, if you want to. It should be the cleaned up version. That's the one you wanted, right? Or not?
Well, I'll use my notes.
Oh, okay. That's good. Let's see. Now I just need to show it on the screen.
Yeah, that's fine.
Big words. Okay.
That works?
The problem that you're gonna just have is that
Oh, I see. I gotta look there.
yeah.
These won't do me a bit of good. Yeah, they will. They'll do a bit of good here. Okay, so I'll just move quickly through did this go out
You
to
want me to
members?
manage it?
No,
Okay.
did this go out to members yet?
It went in the notice. It was in the notice in the
Okay.
Agenda, yes.
So we'll send them out again as well, so you have them. So the current bylaws and the bylaws that will exist say that you have 60 days to review them before we can adopt them. So I'm just gonna go through kind of the changes. We've kind of made a overhaul of the bylaws completely, cleaned up some language, simplified some things. And so that will then give you the 60 days to review, and then we'll adopt it at either the August meeting, depending on how many people attend via Zoom, or we'll do it at the October conference. So basically, where are we at here? I gotta work too.
You have to like look behind you.
Where's your like doohickey at?
You know, see what I'm saying? It's actually like on a pretend monitor off over here
Oh,
somewhere.
where's the mouse? Where's the mouse at? What is this?
Okay, see? Yeah, so it's not on this monitor.
Oh, I gotta look there.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is what I'm saying. It's a little confusing.
Yeah, why don't you drive? All right.
Good idea.
Can you see?
Mhm.
All right. So,
Maybe.
on the beginning, the show table of contents.
Okay.
All right, so we added a table of contents. And you can scroll down to Article 1.
Mhm.
Under the articles, right now, the chapters just say like Section 1, and so we actually gave the chapters names. We cleaned up a little bit of the language.
Do you want me to actually go
Yep.
to the
Can you, oh, there we
Yeah.
go. Yeah, okay. So in paragraph 1, we just cleaned up a little bit of the language to make it sound better. So we, instead of class of membership, I think we now say membership class. Section 2, we titled as voting rights. We basically simplified the language. The current language basically spells out what is in Section 1 and then adds everything that's in that first paragraph under Section 2. So we just cleaned it up to have it show as it states now that chapter members as defined in Section 1 and whose dues are current are eligible to vote in chapter business, with the exception that the commercial members are solely eligible to vote for the commercial representative board position. That was really the only change there. We just simplified the language. We go down to Article 2. Again, under Article 2, we titled it Officers and Executive Committee, the makeup and authority. We did not change any of the language there. Can you scroll down just a little bit?
Just
There we go. Yeah. There was some language, there's some language in the current bylaws that state that the past president serves as a member emeritus with all voting rights. That's a given, so we removed that language. Section 1.
Section 2
Oh, yeah, no, section
or,
1, yeah.
or
Okay.
section.
Right.
There you are.
Right. Okay. So the language that starts with the executive committee, we did not change any of this language. However, it currently is in a different section. We felt that it fit better under section 2 under makeup, or section 1 makeup and authority of the executive committee. So we moved that language out of section 4 and moved it up into section 1 to make it more seamless. And we can scroll down to service requirements. Yep, about right there. So under service requirements, there currently is no requirement for the position of secretary. So for the position of secretary, we added that a candidate for the position of secretary must be a full member of APCO and a public sector voting member of NENA. And let's go down a little more to, oops, for the ambassador. Yeah, there was nothing for ambassador in there as well. So we added a section for ambassadors and what their requirements are. Under section 3 terms. Okay. That first paragraph there, we did not change any of the language. The only thing we did is we added that the consecutive terms are permitted. Currently, it doesn't state that. We've allowed consecutive terms, so we felt it should be in the bylaws as well. Under paragraph 2, we added the language that should the election years not coincide for the office described, that the executive committee may decide to institute a 1-year or 3-year term to realign. Occasionally we get off in election cycles, and to get us back on track, we wanted to give the executive committee authority to be able to change those terms so that we can get everybody back on track. Under the APCO Washington International Executive Council, we removed the language that included that the EC rep may hold a second office, but only have 1 vote. So we didn't change any of the languages there. We just removed the last part. Under section 4, executive committee vacancies, this is a new section that we added. This originally was up under section 1, all kind of, actually it currently is up under section 1, kind of in different areas. So we created a new section, called it executive committee vacancy, and put that language there where we felt it fit better. Under section 5, executive committee meetings and quorums. We talked a little bit about the executive committee meet. Currently, it states that the executive committee will meet once a month. It was felt that occasionally there may not be business that needs to be taken care of. That's not the case under Katie's realm. We always have something to do, but I've been told that occasionally there's been times where there's not really a lot of business that needs to take place. So we wanted to give the executive committee a little bit of flexibility there and say that they will generally meet once a month, with meeting dates and locations to be self-determined. However, if the executive board may elect to cancel a meeting should there be no business. If we do that, then if they cancel the meeting, then the following month's meeting will be held. Let's see. Down to, I think, Article 2, officers. Yeah, officers.
Duties.
Yep, duties and responsibilities. Under section 1, president.
Oh, whoops. I got this.
Oh, yep. Under section 1, president, bullet point 2, it says appoint all. This isn't the revised one.
Special, it's what?
That didn't get revised. That didn't get revised in the
Oh,
document.
well, you just tell me what you want it to say, or tell them.
So under bullet point 2 right now, it says exactly what it says, or appoint all standing and special committee chairs and serve as an ex officio member. We'll get a little bit further down here. We've changed committees. We had standing committees, special committees, ad hoc committees, really all saying the same thing. So we've cleaned that up and said we have committees and kept the language the same. So this bullet point is also changing, saying that the president will appoint all committee chairs and serve as an ex officio member. That's all. Perform the duties as may be required in the APCO Washington Constitution. We also added the NENA. See, there it's there. That's weird. The NENA Washington Constitution. So we added that in there. Under vice president, We didn't change any of the language other than we added that they shall serve as the co-chair of the Washington APCO NENA Administrative Committee. Also, we added under their other duties that the Washington or APCO Washington Constitution and the NENA Washington Constitution, we added that language in there.
Mhm.
Under secretary. Go down, no, that's right, you're right, back up. Oh, no, you're right.
Oh my God. It's okay. It's okay. I got page down. Everything's gonna be fine.
What did they say?
What is happening?
Oh.
Move to approve.
Yeah, no,
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
Under,
I think you give up.
the president, it says that they must attend all meetings, and under the vice president, it says that they'll basically be the executor in the absence of the president.
President shall preside at all meetings of this chapter. And then the vice president will preside if the president's not present.
But that's what he has to be president.
Oh my. I'm trying to get there. Without going somehow wild. I'm gonna end up in like the wrong zone and it's gonna scare me. I'll get back to the front. What?
You're right, you're right.
Oh, I'm on my way. I'm up,
Hey,
right?
Katie,
Hey, Woody.
do you want to take a break so everyone can get their dinner while you guys?
Oh, is dinner here?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, sure. Let's do it. Dinner.
go out there.
I didn't even know dinner was here.
I did.
Okay, so let me fix this. Hold.
So Deanna, so what are you saying then?
Laura's got it. Yeah, Laura's got it. It just, it contradicts each other, so. if they're-
It says you will be here.
The president cannot attend. Because right now it's kind of like a shall, or like when the president shall attend every meeting.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, I don't know what happened. Bylaws, blah, blah, blah. That's the one that I
You guys should
did.
just say, you know, I'm sending this out to you, look at them and approve.
Right, well, look at them and tell us if there, is there any major change, other changes? Like, what are they?
Added, you know, a whole bunch of language about the nominating committee and that the administrative committee will do that. Right now it says, you know, when you'll be appointed, there's quite a bit in there. I can either continue to review this or we can send it out to them and say,
Which we have.
look at this.
Yeah. I mean, in a summary sheet, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that sound? Okay, and then I
Technically, all we need to do is,
present it to them.
well,
That's all we're doing.
technically, all we need to do is say, here's the section that we want to change, and here's the language that we wanted to say. We don't have to tell them what it did say or not.
Right.
Oh my God, I gotta get some ready glasses. Where I can like.
Okay, so we'll just send out this document with a summary.
Otherwise, it's gonna, we're gonna be here forever. You're not gonna get to game night.
We're not even gonna get people,
Is it
which is
okay?
totally fine.
It'll give you like, I got like 15, 20 minutes.
I think if we don't, I mean, I don't, let's spend 5 or 10 more minutes doing it, like,
Alright.
and just get it done. They kind of expect us. But my problem is, why isn't it the same one that you,
Just that one line, for whatever reason, didn't get adopted. And I think that may be on me. I mean, I hit accept all changes, but I didn't.
well, you have it changed in your document.
No, I don't. This one's the one I saved and marked it up, so I knew what I was doing
Control.
with
click.
my notes. So I've got.
Oh, okay.
So I've got. Well, actually, it does have the correct change, and then I got a note as to what we did, so I can
Okay.
tell them what we did.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is. stop
Otherwise, I
presenting.
don't know what we changed. I'm like, oh, yeah, it looks good.
Right, exactly.
Laura, so what is that gonna say? Shall preside or should? Maybe, will preside when available?
Might, every once in a while.
But I don't think it
I
really,
shall strive.
I don't think it really contradicts it. Preside.
Yes,
don't
it says
preside.
that will preside. So
Where
the
does it
will,
preside? At all meetings of this chapter, mine does anyway.
Well,
Preside at all meetings,
Yeah.
but what if they're not at
at
the
all
meeting?
Then the
meetings.
vice president takes over and it says, and
Yeah.
the vice president's there.
So
Yeah.
instead of just saying all meetings, just say preside
Right at meetings. Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
all. I think it's.
You don't want all, so it's not that's all.
You're so funny. She's so funny.
And so let's change it on that one.
Okay,
They're-
that's
they're
under
doing it. It's under
president, right?
president. Oh, look at you. Is that your laptop?
It's a touch screen. You don't have a
No,
touch
no,
screen?
but that,
Oh, yeah, that's what
how does it really jump?
because you created a table of contents. That's how table of
Was
contents,
there a link in
they
there?
work. Yeah, it automatically links
Well,
it.
you created that, not me.
Well.
It was up from when you had done,
Oh, is that right?
yeah, we just cut and pasted in there. I didn't know it had hyperlinks in it.
Yeah. That's like
Preside
the
at
cool
meetings of
things.
this chapter. Perfect. All right, so we'll start there.
Okay, all right,
And
perfect.
then we'll go to appoint committee
And
chair.
we're
Well, we'll say that we're actually not there, but we'll let them know that that's fixed. And then we'll go down to the secretary. That's where we're at.